Ityaham vasudevasya partasya cha mahatmanaha samvadam imam ashrusham adbhutam romaharshanam vyasa prasadat shrutavan etad guhyam aham param yogam yogeshwarat krishnaha sakshat kathayatas swayam rajan samspritya samvadam imam adbhutam Keshavarjunayoh punyam krishyami cha muhurmuhu tatcha samspritya rupam adyatbutam harehe vishmayo me mahan rajan krishyami cha punah punaha yatra yogeshwarah krishnaha yatra partho danurdharaha tatta shri vijayo bhutihi dhruvanītir matir mama. The Bhagavad Gita concludes with a glorious epilogue, the epic epilogue. We all know that there are two Gitas. When we say Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan speaking to Arjuna is one Gita. There is also another Gita to be taken into consideration. Sanjaya narrating to Dhritarashtra. There is an outdoor Gita and there is an indoor Gita. On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Krishna is engaged in a glorious conversation with Arjuna. Indoors, Sanjaya, blessed with the divine vision by his guru Vyasa, narrates the same to Dhritarashtra. In both the Gitas, we have the narrator as the charioteer. One becomes a charioteer by compassion, one is a charioteer by profession. Sanjaya is Dhritarashtra's charioteer. Bhagavan, out of his compassion, becomes Arjuna's charioteer. In both the Gitas, the listeners are blind. In one case, in the indoor Gita, it is the blind Dhritarashtra who is physically blind, also mentally blind. In the other case, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the valiant Arjuna is temporarily blind. So therefore, while the Gita finishes with the 73rd shloka of the 18th chapter with Arjuna's solemn declaration, Karishye vachanam tava, the Gita only finishes actually with the epilogue of Sanjaya. In many ways, it is Sanjaya's epilogue that makes the Gita even more special. It is again another divine coincidence. Today, we are here celebrating in advance Ratha Saptami. Tomorrow is Saptami. Shukla Paksha Magha Masa 7th Tithi. With Uttarayana, Surya Deva begins his northward journey. The celestial journey begins northward. The Uttarayana Punyakala starts, and 7 days from Uttarayana, which is tomorrow, which is Saptami Tithi, is celebrated as Ratha Saptami, where Surya Deva takes a northeastern direction in his celestial journey. Bhaskara is a witness, Karma Sakshi. He is celebrated by our Shastras as Karma Sakshi. The one who witnesses every action performed by all of us. He is the Sakshi. He is Jagat Chakshuhu. We cannot hide from Bhaskara. When we do Suryopasana, we are actually doing Upasana of Surya Mandala Madhyavarti. Dheyas sada savitru mandala madhyavatti narayanaha sarasijasana sannivishtaha keyuravan makarakundalavan kiriti hari hiranmayvapuhu rita shankachakraha shankachakra gadapane dwaraka nilayachyuta govinda pundarikaksha rakshamam sharanagatam. Surya Mandala Madhyavarti Narayana, as the Antaryami of Surya Bhagavan, sustains the workings of this world. So therefore, doing Upasana to Surya Bhagavan is very much part of our Nitya Aradhana. We must understand that it is through Surya Bhagavan that Narayana becomes a witness of everything that happens. And he orchestrates and controls time, order, the workings that govern this universe through Surya Deva. Our Shastras visualize Surya Bhagavan on a chariot. As he travels in his celestial journey, Surya Bhagavan is visualized traveling on a chariot with 7 horses. Inspired by this number 7, Surya Bhagavan's chariot carrying his Ratha is driven by 7 horses. So inspired by this 7, today we will relish 7 codes of living that Sanjaya teaches us in the epic Epilogue. 5 shlokas teaching 7 codes of life and living. The 5 shlokas towards the end of the Gita are not just an epilogue. They are much more, because through these 5 shlokas, Sanjaya not only highlights the glory of the Gita. Sometimes we consider the epilogue of the Gita as Phalashruti, but it is much more than that. Because Krishna teaches Arjuna the Gita. It is Sanjaya who teaches us how to live the Gita. Whatever Krishna taught Arjuna, Sanjaya gives us in a capsule of 5 shlokas with profound principles which are practical, that can be applied in our day-to-day life and living. So therefore today, through the epilogue of Sanjaya, we will relish, for the sake of providing this discussion a structure, and also for the sake of easy recall, we will look at the 7 codes numerically. A numerical list of 7 codes, each of these 7 codes holding profound truths. 1 center, 2 partners, 3-fold relationship, 4-fold goals, 5 mantras, 6 roles, 7 experiences. Through 5 shlokas. 1 center, 2 partners, 3-fold relationship, 4-fold goals, 5 mantras, 6 roles, 7 experiences. 7 codes of living that are profound and very practical, which give us the essence of the Gita. Now, before we dive into the 7 codes that we can derive from the epilogue of Sanjaya, let us briefly look at the epilogue itself and its structure. We must understand Sanjaya's position, how blessed Sanjaya was. Now, Sanjaya has a big role in the Gita. We all say Gita is Krishna-Arjuna Samvada. Arjuna has 84 verses. Sanjaya has 41 verses, almost half of Arjuna. So by no means Sanjaya's role in the Gita is on the periphery. He plays a central role. We see many of Sanjaya's shlokas more profound, especially the epilogue. Ityaham vasudevasya partasya cha mahatmanaha samvadamimam ashausham adbhutam romaharshanam. In order for us to relish these shlokas of Sanjaya, we must try and put ourselves in Sanjaya's position. Only then we can realize the significance of these shlokas. Realize the significance. We will understand Sanjaya's mood. Sanjaya was in a state of ecstasy, in a state of deep gratitude. He was constantly counting his blessings. Being a witness to the entire Mahabharata, he was in a very unenvious position. No, he had to narrate the finer details of the Mahabharata war to Dhritarashtra, but the reward was to not just witness, not just listen, but experience every word spoken by Krishna to Arjuna. Sanjaya not just heard, he experienced. Therefore, the epilogue begins with, in a very profound note, iti, thus, ityaham vasudevasya partyasya mahatmanaha. Thus, the conversation between the Paramatma and Arjuna, the Mahatma, concludes. What a wonderful conversation it was. Ashrausham, I've heard this conversation, the most wonderful, the most wondrous of conversations. Adbhutam Romaharshanam. It was Adbhuta, Ati Adbhuta Romaharshana. Having heard this glorious conversation between the Paramatma and Arjuna, the Mahatma, I am in a state of wonder, experiencing horripilations all over my body. Hey Dhritarashtra, Sanjaya was in a state of ecstasy. What is important here to note is he qualifies Arjuna as Mahatma. So therefore, in this very first shloka, we must understand that Arjuna, by listening to Krishna, has now become a Mahatma. Who is a Mahatma? One who knows Krishna. Arjuna starts the journey not knowing who Krishna was. From not knowing Krishna to knowing about Krishna to eventually knowing Krishna. That's the journey of Arjuna. Now, all of us start one step before, not caring to know Krishna. Typically, the journey is in 4 phases. Many of us comfortably stay in the first phase, not caring to know about Krishna. And then, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye. One out of thousands would possibly endeavor to move to the next stage. From not caring about Krishna, but possibly trying to know but not knowing. No, not knowing is a good stage to be in, as long as there is that inquisitiveness to know. From not knowing, one moves to knowing about Krishna. Knowing about Krishna is collecting content. We have enough tools today to give all content to us. But no tool can give us, no tool can help us assimilate that content, experience Krishna. That we must do. We can outsource everything else. Experiencing Krishna is our job. From knowing about Krishna to experiencing Krishna, realizing Krishna, that's knowing Krishna. Arjuna has become a Mahatma. All of us also call ourselves Mahatmas because we also aspire to know Krishna. So therefore it's okay to call each of us Mahatmas. No problem. Not only that, who is a Mahatma? Through the Gita, the teachings of Krishna has enabled Arjuna to cultivate, to have an expansive perspective of life. This is what Gita does. To anyone who comes under the shelter of Gita, one thing happens magically. Perspective of life expands. The more we are connected to the Gita, more expansive is our perspective of life. And when we have an expansive perspective, we also get the right vision of life and living. We get to understand the true purpose of life. Arjuna has understood his purpose. Sanjaya has understood his purpose. And only when we understand the purpose of life, only then it is that understanding that can guide us make the right choices in our lives. And Arjuna has made the right choice. So therefore, with the very first shloka of the epilogue, Sanjaya clearly demonstrates what Gita can do to everyone who comes under its magical spell. And then immediately Sanjaya expresses immense gratitude. Vyasa prasadat shrutavan etad guhyam aham param yogam yogeshwarat krishnat sakshat kathayatas swayam. It is only because of the mercy of my Guru that I was fortunate, I was blessed to learn param guhyam, the most confidential conversation that Krishna had with Arjuna. Why it is confidential? It is confidential, it is a secret, it is guhya, because unless the mind is prepared to receive, wisdom can be given, but as important as giving, receiving, if the mind is not prepared, one will not receive that wisdom. That is why it is guhya. He says, it is the mercy of my Guru that I learned, I received this Parama Guhya, the supreme knowledge, this Raja Vidya, this Raja Guhyam. Vyasa prasadat shrutavan etad guhyam aham param yogam yogeshwarat krishnat sakshat kathayatas swayam. How blessed I am that because of the mercy of my Guru, I heard that conversation where Krishna personally talking to Arjuna. I was able to listen to that personal conversation. Now we may all think that how blessed Sanjaya is, possibly is one of amongst a million that he is able to hear Krishna's personal talk. The reality is, Krishna is talking to us personally all the time. The difference is Sanjaya was able to listen to it. Are we even acknowledging that Krishna is talking to us? Just like how in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Krishna spoke to Arjuna, in the battlefield of our lives, Krishna is talking to us. Every day, every moment. The question is, do we hear his voice? The question is, why don't we hear his voice? We keep asking this question, hey Bhagavan, why don't you listen to me? The question we must ask is, am I listening to him before I even question him? Sanjaya's shloka very clearly points out that we must realize that Krishna is talking to us. And with the mercy of the Guru, like Sanjaya, one can listen to Krishna's voice. The Guru, as Vyasa did to Sanjaya, shapes, strengthens one's intention, helps fine-tune one's attention, kindles one's affection for Krishna. And when we have all of these three in place, magic happens. All of a sudden, we start to listen to Krishna's nectarine message all the time. He is always willing to have a conversation with us, waiting for us to strike that conversation with him. So therefore, Sanjaya reassures us, Vyasa prasadat shrutavan etad guhyam aham param yogam yogeshwarat krishnat sakshat katayata swayam. Sakshat Krishna will also talk to us. That's a big assurance that Sanjaya gives. Rajan samspritya samvadam imam adbhutam keshavarjunayor punyam krishyami cha muhurmuhu. Sanjaya, that's why I said, Krishna taught Arjuna the Gita. Sanjaya teaches us how to live the Gita. He says, hey Rajan, samspritya samvadam imam adbhutam. It is not just listening to Krishna once. It is about constant replay of what is listened. Listening to him once is not enough. Listening to glorious wisdom starts working only when there is a constant recall. And here he says, Samvadam Adbhutam Keshavarjunayoh Punyam Krishyamicha Muhurmuhu Krishyamicha. In delight, he is joyful. Muhurmuhu. And he also says this Samvada is not only a great wonder, it is purifying, he says. This is the beauty of the Gita. Knowingly or unknowingly, it purifies the listener. And there is that sense of joy that arises. And it is that sense of joy that Sanjaya here is sharing. Now, one thing, a very important message Sanjaya gives to us here. Many of us believe life is meant to be a pursuit of happiness. Is life meant to be a pursuit of happiness is a question that we need to ask ourselves. And Sanjaya here categorically clarifies. Sanjaya says, life is meant to be a pursuit of meaning and purpose. Happiness is a byproduct. When he says, Rajan samspritya samvadam imam adbhutam, he says, I have realized the joy because I realized that by listening, recalling this, I have realized the meaning and purpose of my life. And that is enough for me, hey Rajan. Because the moment I understand the meaning and purpose of my life, I don't need to chase happiness anymore. It is being rooted in the purpose of my life. I experience that real bliss, that real joy. And then he says, Tacha samspritya rupam adyatputam hare. How blessed Sanjaya is. No, we all struggle to capture Krishna in our minds. It is our endeavor to constantly stay connected with him, with our minds filled with his Divya Mangala Vigraha. The beauty of Krishna. This shows that Sanjaya has realized the beauty of truth and the truth of beauty. He says, Rupam Adyatputam Hare, Samshritya. That Hari's beautiful form. I'm able to stay connected. He is able to visualize it constantly. Krishna has decided to stay occupying Sanjaya's heart and mind. Tacha samspritya rupam atyatputam hare. Vismayo me mahan rajan. Krishyami cha punah punaha. Vismaya. He uses a beautiful word. He says, Vismayo me mahan rajan. Krishyami cha punah punaha. That alone is enough. That reward alone is enough. This is the greatest rewards that anybody can actually get. Because ultimately, all the yogis do all sadhanas only for this reward. And Sanjaya is blessed with that reward of all rewards. And then he concludes the epilogue, he concludes the Gita with the greatest assurances that anybody can give. It is a prophecy and it's an assurance. And it is both combined. It is also the answer to Dhritarashtra's first question. Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yutsava pamaka pandavas chaiva kimakarvata Sanjaya. Eventually meaning who is going to win the war? Sanjaya. Yatra yogeshwara krishnaha yatra partho dharuddaraha tatra shri vijayo bhutir drivani tirmatir mama. The prophecy is where there is Krishna, wherever there is Arjuna, there is victory. The assurance is where there is Krishna, wherever we are aligned with Krishna, victory is assured. When the human will is aligned with divine will, life becomes a magic. Victory is assured. That's the glorious note with which the Gita concludes, with which the epilogue concludes. So through 5 simple shlokas, Sanjaya magically concludes the Gita. But what is important is to see how through these 5 shlokas, Sanjaya is actually sharing with us some profound truths. So therefore, we will look at these 5 shlokas and derive 7 codes of life, all numerical, right? So for those of you who've just come in, the 7 codes of life being numerical, being 1 center, 2 partners, 3-fold relationship, 4-fold goals, 5 mantras, 6 roles, 7 experiences. So let's take each of these codes and understand from these shlokas. 1 center. It can also be 1 medicine. Now, we all know that the medicines that we consume day in and day out can be categorized in two categories, largely palliatives and curatives. Palliatives typically are painkillers. And, we are good consumers of palliatives. The palliatives, while temporarily killing pain, do not really address the root cause of the disease. Only when we take a curative, we can actually address the root cause. Now, in our material existence, we all also are diseased. We have spiritual disease. And we do keep taking palliatives to address this disease. And what is the palliative that we keep taking? The pleasures that we get from this world and the worldly objects. These are like palliatives, temporary painkillers. The more we take, the more after effects we're going to have. You all know this. Now we need the curative. We need the real medicine, the real aushada. Vyamoha prasamaushadam, munimonovritti pravrityaushadam, daityendrartikaroshadam, trijagatam sanjeevanaikaushadam, bhaktatyanta hitaushadam, bhavabhaya pradvancha naikaushadam, shreyo praptikaroshadam, pibamana Sri Krishna divya aushadam. Sri Krishna divya aushada. It is both a palliative and a curative. Vyamoha prasamaushadam. Vyamoha means delusion. The only medicine that addresses our delusory state in the material existence, Krishna Aushada. Munivaro vritti pravrityaushadam. The only medicine that can turn our minds in the right direction is Krishna Aushada. Krishna is the means, Krishna is the goal. It is the Krishna Aushada which also gives us the right direction, and also it's a Krishna Aushada which attracts him towards Krishna. Daityendrarti karaushadam, all the Daitya, all our external enemies and internal enemies can be slayed only because of Krishna Aushada. Shreya prapti karaushada, all Shreya, all benedictions that we need, the prosperity that we need, the wealth that we need, both material and spiritual, the only medicine is Krishna Aushada. Now, it is that one medicine which is also the one center. Our life works only when we have a non-negotiable center. Our life works, this is code number 1, code of living. Our life works only when the center of our life is non-negotiable. And that non-negotiable center has to be Krishna. If we examine our own lives, we have several centers. We are running around, going around, revolving around several centers. All these centers are temporary, keeps changing all the time. That is the reason why our life is like a go around. I wouldn't call it merry go around. It may seem merry, but it is a miserable go around. What is merry is actually miserable, because we keep going around and around and around chasing things because of the center being temporary, changing all the time. And that is the reason why we are constantly in a state of restlessness, with the mind scattered, with the heart incomplete. There is always a sense of lack. Howso much we accumulate, there is always that sense of lack. So therefore, Sanjaya very clearly, when he says Yatra Yogeshwara Krishnaha Yatra Partho Dhanuddaraha, he's clearly pointing out that there has to be one non-negotiable center in our lives, and the defining center of our lives has to be Krishna. Krishna must be our defining center and our driving force. When Krishna becomes our defining center, what happens? Everything in our life has to revolve around Krishna. All our goals will revolve around Krishna. All our desires will revolve around Krishna. We suddenly see a magical order in everything that we do in our life and living, because now there is that center, that anchor, that unshakable, unfailing center that keeps us centered, not running around in the periphery all the time. Krishna has to be our defining center. At the same time, he also has to be the driving force, because many times we may think a devotional life is all about just meditation to Krishna. In the case of Arjuna, we clearly see meditation is neither passive nor even contemplative meditation. It is about active dedication and contribution through selfless work. This is what Arjuna demonstrates. A devotional life which is in a state of surrender to Krishna can never be passive. One needs to engage in Krishna Kainkarya. And a meditative state is not actionless state. This is what Gita teaches us. A meditative state is not just a state of actionless contemplation. It is action rooted in stillness. When Krishna becomes the defining center and the driving force, then just like what happened to Arjuna, what happened to Sanjaya, we are constantly in a state of meditation, meditating on Krishna, but also in a mood of dedication and contribution all the time. So therefore, the first code of living is that we must recognize that can be only one center. When the life is centered around Krishna, and when that center becomes non-negotiable, life becomes magical. The second code, 2 partners. Life is meant to be a partnership of 2. It is not a solo project. Very important to realize. And when I say partnership of two, who is the other? The other is obviously Krishna. Krishna is always wanting to work with us in partnership. The question is, are we willing to work with him? No, Arjuna was in the same chariot with Krishna. Krishna was his charioteer. Arjuna was there on the same chariot. But then he was unwilling to work with Krishna. No wonder he was sinking in abysmal grief. He was in a very sorry state, not knowing what to do, paralyzed completely, traumatized. But the moment Arjuna recognized that victory only lies in working with Krishna, magic happens. Now, what applies to Arjuna applies to each and every one of us. This body is like a chariot. And just like how Krishna was waiting for Arjuna in his chariot, Krishna is ever waiting in this chariot, which is this body, waiting for us to see whether we are willing to work with him. Unfortunately, firstly, we don't even recognize he is also with us in the same chariot. Second, after realizing that he is also with us as our charioteer, are we ready to work with him? The moment we turn towards Krishna and we prepare ourselves, aligning ourselves with his will, that is when this chariot runs on the right course in our life and living. Now, in our lives, we all know that we have two kinds of situations: difficult situations and comfortable situations. Now, all of us know that. Now, during difficult situations, we conclude very quickly. We use our own human conceptions to assess the situations. And we easily get dragged into disappointments, frustration, anguish, anxiety, without realizing that we must let Krishna work. We must give Krishna some space to work. We cannot occupy all the space and think some magic will happen. We must realize that Krishna will act and can act, but in his own inconceivable ways, at his own pace. These two things we must underline. Krishna will act, Krishna can act, but he acts at his pace in inconceivable ways. But act he shall, because we are never alone. And only when we let his omnipotence and his infinite benevolence take over, only then we become truly confident. In a way, the word self-confidence is a misnomer. We should actually call it Krishna confidence. It is not confidence on ourselves that really matters ultimately. It is confidence that Krishna is working with us all the time that truly matters. Sanjaya gives us beautifully this vision of a true human-divine partnership. In this epilogue, that's why it is an epic epilogue, because he gives us what is this partnership between the human and the divine. Because eventually, when we look at it, everything that we do is actually a human-divine partnership. And therefore, when Sanjaya says, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishnaha, Yatra Partho Dhanurdharaha, Tatra Shrihi Vijayo Bhutirhi Divanītir Mathir Mama, he gives us a glorious vision. And we must, in that vision, we must understand the roles very importantly. In any partnership, roles are important. It is the lack of clarity of roles which is where all the trouble begins. Whether it is human partnerships or human divine partnerships, role clarity is very important. And this is where we actually lack. We do not have role clarity, neither in human relationships nor with the divine. In many ways, we can sum up all the problems that we have because of this lack of clarity when it comes to roles. I have my business to do, Krishna has his business to do. I have to be very clear on these roles. I do my business and let Krishna do his business. But the problem that we have is we want to do Krishna's business, knowing that we will fail. First, I must do what I can. Only then Krishna will do what I can't. When I am clear about what I can, because he has given me talents, skills, faculties, a healthy body, healthy mind, a healthy intelligence. When he has given me these faculties, these endowments, which are very special, very unique, and with an intelligence with which I can discriminate and know what is in my control, what is not in my control. When I do my business to the best of my abilities, then I can be certain that Krishna will do what is impossible. When I do what is possible to me, Krishna will do what is seemingly impossible to me. The innumerable, insurmountable hurdles that I in no way can do anything about, Krishna will take care of that. In many ways, this is what we can call upward delegation. We must be brave enough to delegate to Krishna things that we cannot do. This is where Sanjaya, in his epic epilogue, beautifully captures this fundamental truth. When we realize this dynamics of the human and divine partnership, we get a secret formula, a powerful formula, how to get things done, how to get things done successfully. So therefore, the second code is the code of partnership of two. Life is not a solo project. Life is a glorious partnership of two. My partnership with Krishna. The third that Sanjaya teaches so very beautifully, threefold relationship. What is this threefold relationship that Sanjaya teaches? Now, when we study the Bhagavatam, we get to see repeatedly, or many of the other texts, it could be Vishnu Purana or many of the other texts, we get to see repeatedly declarations and proclamations on the significance of an acharya, of a guru. And we normally ask this question. Krishna seems to be little muted in the Gita. Yes, there is one shloka in the Gita in the 4th chapter. Tadviddi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninaha tattvadarishiraha. Where clearly Krishna, the Gita Acharya, talks about the role of an Acharya, of a Guru. He also says in the 13th chapter, Amanitvam, Adambitvam, Mahimsa, Kshantirarjavam, Acharyo Upasanam Shaucham Stairyam Atma Vinigraha. Acharya Upasana is also referred to in the 13th chapter. Apart from this, we don't see too much of an emphasis in the Gita. Therefore, sometimes we do ask this question. But in the Gita, as part of the epilogue, Sanjaya clearly clarifies. He highlights why this is so very significant. Vyasa prasadat shrutavan etad guhyam aham param yogam yogeshwarat krishnat sakshat katayata swayam. Vyasa prasadat shrutavan. In many ways, Gita is Acharya Prasada. Gita Acharya, Krishna as Acharya to Arjuna, his Prasada is the Gita. And that Prasada would not have been available if there was no prasada of Vyasa to Sanjaya. So therefore, in a way, Gita is Acharya Prasada. So the question of what is the role of a guru that Gita talks about becomes very clear in the epilogue of Sanjaya. Why it is a threefold relationship? So we must see also that Sanjaya presents the human divine partnership. But Sanjaya also clearly says this human divine partnership becomes consummated, becomes consecrated, becomes complete only with the mercy of the Guru. Now, the threefold relationship that we must understand here is from what Krishna talks about in the 4th chapter. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Threefold relationship. Pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. For learning to become living, this threefold relationship with the Guru becomes so very critical. Only when there is this threefold relationship, the learning becomes living. Only then the Gita which is learned becomes Gita that is lived, as Sanjaya himself very clearly says. Tadvidhi pranipatena. Pranipatena is surrendering. Humility opens the doorway to knowledge. It is through surrender to the Guru. That's step 1. To receive knowledge, first one must empty oneself. Without emptying the mind, one cannot get new knowledge, new wisdom. And that happens to surrender. Pranipatena, pariprashnena. Pariprashnena, inquisitiveness, inquiry, sincere, loving inquiry, asking the right questions. Now, when the question is sincere, any question is right. Now, with surrender, we get the answer to the question, I do not know the way. With inquisitiveness, pariprashnena, we then proclaim, yes, I do not know the way, but I want to know the way. Now, these two alone are not enough. Krishna says, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena. He does not conclude there. He says, Sevaya. If it is only pranipatena and pariprashnena, then one collects information. Collecting information is just one part of the process. How do I assimilate that information? I do not know the way. I want to know the way. Now I've collected the information. Now I must walk the way shown. Sevaya. Seva to the Guru, as Krishna says, enables one to assimilate what is collected, and that assimilation transforms and translates as action. So therefore, that's threefold relationship with the Guru enables one's learning to translate and transform into living. And Sanjaya teaches us how not just to recognize one's blessing, but keep counting one's blessing. That is why he says, Vyasa prasadat shrutavan etad guhyam aham param yogam yogeshwarat krishnat sakshat katayata swayam. That he is unable to reconcile the fact that he is ordinary Sanjaya. He is a charioteer of Dhritarashtra. Sakshat Yogeshwara. When he is talking personally to Arjuna, how am I able to even receive something so very sacred? And Sanjaya says, it is not because of my capabilities, my abilities, it is Vyasa Prasada. It is my Guru's Kripa that opens the doorway for Krishna Kripa. So therefore, the third code of living is the threefold relationship transforms living, learning to living. One center, partnership of two, threefold relationship, fourfold goals. Fourfold goals. Immediately we missed. It should strike us. Fourfold goals are, in our Shastras, when we look at the goals of life, they are classified into four Purusharthas. Artha, Kama, Dharma, Moksha. Dharmartha, Kama, Mokshas. Artha essentially is material wealth. Kama is fulfillment of desires. Moksha is ultimate liberation. Dharma, obviously, that which governs, the laws which governs everything, and essentially that which is right for our life and living. Now, Sanjaya is very clear. He says, when we understand the ultimate goal of life, that understanding does not cancel every other goal. Now, if many of us have this question, when I become a mumukshu, what happens to me? As though something untoward is going to happen. What will happen? Can I lead my life normally like everybody else? Because mumukshu means moksha is my ultimate goal. So therefore, what happens to every other goal of mine? We have families, we have responsibilities, we have things to do in our life. Yes, obviously. But the beauty here is, Sanjaya very clearly, he says, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishnaha, Yatra Partho Dhanuddaraha, Tatra Shrihi, Vijayaha, Bhutihi, Dhruva Nitihi, Matir Mama, he says. Shrihi, Bhutihi, Dhruva Nitihi. Dhruva Niti, Dhruva means constant, eternal, Niti, righteousness, essentially Dharma, Sanatana Dharma. Dhruva Niti means Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma, eternal Dharma. Sanatana Dharma. Now, Shrihi, Shri stands for all kinds of prosperity, all kinds of wealth, material wealth, spiritual wealth. Shrihi, Bhutihi means well-being, fulfillment of all our desires. So therefore, Shri here stands for Artha. Bhutihi stands for Kama. Obvious, Dhruva Nitihi stands for Dharma. Vijayaha. Now, Vijayaha is victory in this life. More importantly, victory from the cycle of birth, life and death. Moksha. Now, when moksha is the ultimate goal, it doesn't cancel every other goal. The beauty is, this is what Krishna teaches, and this is what Sanjaya is highlighting once again in the epilogue. When moksha becomes the ultimate goal, when Krishna becomes the ultimate goal, every other goal, artha and kama, become means to that goal. They stop being ends. Otherwise, we all think that artha is an end, kama is an end, moksha is another end, and therefore we see conflicts. If I pursue artha, it conflicts with moksha. If I pursue kama, it conflicts with moksha. But they are not different ends. When moksha becomes the ultimate goal, when attaining Krishna becomes the ultimate goal, artha and kama cease to be ends, they become means, which means the pathway also is beautiful. There is no problem if in the course of life and living, there is also wealth. In the course of life and living, we also fulfill some of our material desires, but knowing fully well that these are not the ends. These are just intermediate milestones to the ultimate milestone. And dharma, as we have seen, is essentially, when we look at, is not just what is right today, is right forever. And ultimately, the ultimate dharma is Krishna himself. And therefore, the fourfold goals, Sanjaya's fourth code of living, is to realize that the moment we have Krishna as the goal, our goals become orderly. We see order in our life. Everything becomes so very structured. There is no more conflict in our minds. All the restlessness, all the anxiety, everything automatically vanishes, because that one goal takes care of bringing every other goal in a beautiful order. Krishna and here Sanjaya also are not saying forget about all the worldly goals, become an ascetic and a monk and renounce everything. That's not what Krishna said. That's exactly not what Sanjaya is saying. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishnaha, Yatra Partho Dhanuddaraha. He did not say Tatra Moksha Praptihi. He did not say Tatra Shrihi, Vijayaha, Bhutihi, Dhruvanitihi, Matirmama. He knows. If he says Tatra Moksha Praptihi means all of us would say we will take up Gita after we retire. Gita has to be taken not at 60, at the age of 6. These little kids sitting out here are really blessed like Sanjaya. Because it is here that transformation begins and accelerates so very fast. And it is here that Sanjaya's assurance is so very, very important. Obviously, all of us are also kids in the eyes of Krishna. So I will not exclude anyone. So when Sanjaya talks about Shrihi, Vijayaha, Bhutihi, Dhruvanitihi, he essentially brings the fourth code of living as to how, without cancelling the worldly goals, how can we bring a beautiful order? And that order comes when out of the 4, one goal, Krishna, becomes the goal of all goals. One center, 2 partners, 3-fold relationship, 4-fold goals, 5 mantras. 5 mantras. Mantras. What is a mantra? Mananat trayate iti mantraha. That, when contemplated, protects and liberates. That's the power of a mantra. It protects and it also liberates. And the beauty is, Krishna Nama is also a mantra. Bhagavan himself is a mantra. Bhagavan's Nama, which is non-different from Bhagavan, is also a mantra. Very important to realize this. Krishna and Krishna's Nama are non-different. So when I ask this question, is Krishna accessible to me? The answer is resounding yes. Because Krishna Nama is accessible to me wherever I am, in whatever state. So therefore, Bhagavan is mantra. Bhagavan's divine namas are mantras. Chatruchedeika mantram, Sakalam Upanishad Vakya Sampujya mantram, Samsarotra mantram, Samupachita Tamasanga Niryana mantram, Sarvaishwaryeika mantram, Vyasanabujaga Sandashta Santrana mantram, Jihve Sri Krishna mantram, Japajapa Satatam, Janma Sapalya mantram. In Mukundamala, Kulashekara says, Krishna, you are the mantra. Chatruchedeika mantram, he says. Our Shatrus are not outside. They're all there nicely residing inside. We are all looking outwards to start counting our outward enemies. True enemies have been sitting with us, not in this lifetime. They have been traveling with us for ages and we have not realized. How do I conquer those enemies? With the Krishna mantra. Shatruchedaika mantram. Sakalam Upanishad Vakya Sampujya mantram. All the Upanishads essentially are meant to just give us that one mantra, that Krishna mantra. Samsarottara mantra. How do I traverse this ocean of samsara? Krishna and Krishna's Nama is like a boat that takes me safely to the shore. Samupachita Tamasanga Niryana mantram. The Krishna Nama completely removes all the dark, deep clouds of tamas. Tamas overpowers us to such an extent that just the Krishna Nama is enough for us to get out of this trap. Sarvaishwaryaika mantram. All the Aishwarya that we need for a comfortable life and living, and the Aishwarya of Vaikuntha is bestowed to us through this one mantra. Vyasana Bhujaga Sandashta Santrana mantram. Afflictions of this world are like serpents. We don't realize we are constantly bitten by various serpents. We think, where are these serpents? But we know we are constantly being bitten. Because whether we realize it or not just physical afflictions, we go through mental afflictions all the time. And these serpents, the bites of the serpent's cure are not easily available. It's only Krishna mantra. Yasana bhujaga sandashta santrana mantram. Jihve Sri Krishna mantram. Japa japa satatam. Janma sapalya mantra. Janma sapalya. For the mission of the purpose of this life to be fulfilled, we need Krishna mantra. So Sanjaya knows this. Therefore, he within the epilogue gives us 5 mantras. 5 memorable mantras. 5 beautiful namas. Ityaham Vasudevasya. Number 1, Parthasya cha Mahatmanaha. Second, Yasa Prasadat Shrutavan Etad Guhyam Aham Param Yogam Yogeshwarat Krishnaha. Yogeshwarat Krishnaha. Third, Rajan Samsmritya Samvadamimam Adbhutam Keshavarjunayo Punyam Keshava. Tacha Samsmritya Rupam Atyadbhutam Hare. Hare. 5 beautiful mantras. That is why this is an epic epilogue. 5 mantras. What are these 5? Vasudeva, Yogeshwara, Krishna, Keshava, Hari. What is Vasudeva? Vasudeva is one of the 3 Vyapaka namas. Bhagavan has thousands and thousands of namas, but 3 are very, very special, very unique. They are celebrated as Vyapaka namas. Narayana, Vishnuhu, Vasudeva. So Vasudeva is a very special nama of Bhagavan. Why he is Vasudeva? One is he is son of Vasudeva. The Paravasudeva decided to descend as son of Vasudeva. But Vasudeva means Vasudeva, which means one who pervades and permeates, and Deva, one who sports. What does he sport? What sport does he engage? Bhagavan engages in a sport called Srishti, Sthiti, Laya. So therefore, Vasudeva is one who pervades and permeates everything in this universe, and he sports through Srishti, Sthiti, Laya. He is Vasudeva. The second mantra is Yogeshwara. Yogam Yogeshwara Krishna. Yogeshwara is a beautiful nama for Krishna. Yoga Ishwara. Yoga here stands for divine powers. The master of divine opulences, divine power is Yogeshwara. The Vishnu Sahasranama, we see Yogaha, Yogo, Yoga Vidam Neta, Pradhana Purusheshwaraha. Pradhana Purusha Ishwaraha. That is one nama. Ishwara of Pradhana and Purusha put together is one nama. Pradhana Purusheshwara. Yogeshwara is Pradhana Purusheshwara. Because yoga here is the sambandha between Pradhana and Purusha. What is Pradhana? Pradhana is Achittatva Prakriti. Purusha Chittatva, all the Jivatmas. The sambandha between the two is this, the result, outcome is his entire creation. The one who rules over this. So he is Pradhana Purusha Ishwaraha, he is Yogeshwaraha. Now, therefore, from this nama, what we must realize, when the Jiva, the Chit Tattva, serves Bhagavan, serves Krishna, then and only then he severs the Jiva's relationship with Prakriti. So, the moment the Jiva surrenders to Krishna, then this sambandha, which is coming from time immemorial, that gets severed, that gets cut. Unless and otherwise, this relationship, this sambandha between Pradhana and Purusha can never be cut, can never be severed. Because he is Yogeshwara, through that nama, Sanjaya also is reminding that to attain moksha, to attain Krishna, we must surrender to Krishna. That is the second nama. The third, Krishnaha. Krishnaha. We can keep repeating this Krishna nama any number of times. Every time we say Krishnaha, we can taste nectar in our tongues. Such is the beauty of the Krishna nama. He is Krishna because he is the very receptacle, very repository of limitless bliss. That is why he is Krishna. He is also the source of all akarshana. He is the one who attracts each and everyone. He is like a magnet who attracts everyone. Therefore, he is Krishna. Kasturi tilakam lalatapatale vakshastale kaustubham nasagre naumuktikam karatale venukkare kankanam sarvange harichantanam sulalitam kanthecha muktavalim gopastri pariveshtito vijayate gopala chudamani. Vijayate gopala chudamani. The moment we visualize Krishna amongst the gopas and the gopikas, how can we not taste that nectar, that divine nectar? Every time we utter Krishna Nama, we taste nectar. Such is the beauty of Krishna Nama. So Sanjaya obviously would definitely include this Krishna mantra in his epilogue. Vasudeva, Yogeshwara, Krishna. Fourth is Keshava. Keshavarjunayo punyam. Keshava, two important ways to understand. One, Keshava, Yogo, Yogavidam Neta, Pradhana Purusheshwaraha, Narasimha Vapuhu Shriman, Keshavaha. There the Keshava, flowing hair, beautiful hair. That is one. More importantly here, Keshava, he is the origin of Ka and Isha, Brahma and Shiva. So essentially, the source of all sources. He is the source of creation. So therefore, he is Keshava. Vasudeva, Yogeshwara, Krishna, Keshava, Hari. Hari, interestingly, uses the Nama Hari at the right place. What does he say? Tacha samsmritya rupam adyadbhutam Hare. Probably Sanjaya was visualizing Narasimha at that time. Rupam adyadbhutam Hare, like Prahalada. That's why Tacha samsmritya. That Rupa is so beautiful that the moment I start visualizing that, I am in a state of eternal ecstasy. That is an ecstatic absorption there. Hari, Hari, Harati Papani. Dushta chittairapi smritaha, Prahalada says. So Prahalada has a special liking for Hari, the Nama Hari. And he defines why Bhagavan is called Hari. He says, Hari, Harati Papani. Dushta chittairapi smritaha, he says. Hari, Harati Papani is very clear. Hari, this one who dispels the darkness of all the papas. Harati Papani. But the second statement of Prahalada can be shocking to us. He says, Dushta chittairapi smritaha. Even when the Dushtas chant the Nama Hari, he blesses them, he says. He blessed Hiranyakashipu. Because like Prahalada, Hiranyakashipu also was using the Harinama. How, we may ask? The Harinama's significance is that it is like fire. Whether I know about it or not, whoever touches the fire will get burnt. So the Nama is not powerful because one understands what it stands for. It is powerful because the Bhagavan himself is the Nama. So whether I chant it with devotion or without devotion, Prahalada says it still works magic. So many times we have this question, I am not in a mood. I want to chant, I want to pray, but somehow tamas is dominating, overpowering me. What do I do? Hari, 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 Hari. Hari, Harati Papani, Dushta Chittairapi Smritaha. Hari will take care, and just a matter of time, tamas will be dispelled and sattva will rise for us to engage our sadhana. Such is the power of Harinama, and that is the last Nama in the epic epilogue of Sanjaya. Therefore, Sanjaya once again wants to give us that assurance that stay connected with Harinama. Harinama Smarana alone is enough. So, 5 mantras. What are the 5 mantras? Vasudeva, Yogeshwara, Hari. 5 mantras. 6th code. Six roles. The code that Sanjaya gives us, six roles make our life roll. Six roles make our life roll beautifully. What are these six roles? What we must understand is, for transmission of spiritual knowledge, for spiritual knowledge to become transformative, six roles are very important. And in the epilogue of Sanjaya, we see all these six roles. Now, what are these six roles? The first and foremost role is the source of all wisdom, Yogeshwara, Krishna himself. He is the source. He is the source. He is the one who gives us the Vedas. And he is the very anchor of all wisdom, of all knowledge. So the first role is the role played by Krishna, Ishvara himself. The second role is the role of a receiver. Arjuna plays that role here in the Gita. The role played by a receiver to receive the knowledge. Bhagavan is ready to give, but there has to be a receiver to receive the knowledge. So Arjuna stands for the role of the receiver of knowledge. The third role is the role of the seer, the guru. Sanjaya clearly highlights the role played by Vyasa. Now, Bhagavan is the source of all knowledge. He is ready to give. And there is a receiver who is ready to receive, but unfortunately, the signals don't match. Bhagavan talks in a different language, different signal. The receiver needs it in a different signal. There has to be a conversion that needs to happen. So there needs to be an intermediate person who translates what Bhagavan wants to convey to the receiver. That's the role of the seer, the guru, who illuminates the path. Krishna says, Gatir Bharta Prabhu Sakshi Nivasa Sharanam Suhrit. But until it is revealed by the guru, one does not realize that Krishna is the Gati, Krishna is the Bharta, Krishna is the Sakshi, Krishna is the Nivasa. So therefore, the third role is the role of the guru. The source, the receiver, the guru. Fourth role, very important role, because all of us constantly are also seeking to find that role. We always say, did this person get moksha? That did person get moksha? Bhagavan teaches us this. Who practiced it? We always ask this question, who practiced this? We need somebody to verify the teachings. We need somebody as a verifier, as a validator. Sanjaya himself is that verifier, that validator. Taccha samshrutya samsputya rupam atyatputam hare. He is the one who verifies Krishna's teaching. When Krishna says, Maya sakta manah partha yogam yunjan madashraya asamshayam samagramam yatagnyasasi tat shrunu. He starts the 7th chapter where the mind, which can be fully absorbed in Krishna, that blissful state, that state of blissful union and communion with Krishna. Somebody needs to verify, yes, this is what is taught by the Shastra, but I have experienced it. Ultimately, learning is only through experience. We can study hundreds of principles. Unless each and every one of us experience the teaching, we will never be fully convinced. It will still remain a theory. And therefore, we need examples to say, hey, I have experienced what is being taught, which gives us a lot of assurance. And if the experiencer, if the validator is not an exalted person, that is even better. Because other question we'll ask is, for him it is possible, not for me. Because we'll also say that. So, Sanjaya, an ordinary charioteer of Dhritarashtra, who happens to be on the wrong side, he accompanies Dhritarashtra all the time. Good example for all of us, because we live in the world of Dhritarashtras today. So therefore, Sanjaya possibly is the best verifier, best validator for us. So the fourth role is the role of the verifier and the validator, one who can share his personal experience, right? It's like asking, have you seen Krishna? Yes, I have seen Krishna. Say that with conviction so that the other person realizes. And the conviction can come only when there is an experience, only when there is realization. That's the fourth role. The fifth role also is equally important. Source, receiver, guru, validator, society. Because ultimately, for the Shastra to be propagated and transmitted, it is not just one receiver. We need the entire society. And who else other than Dhritarashtra can represent society? World of Dhritarashtras. So therefore, Dhritarashtra, when we see in Sanjaya's epilogue very clearly all these roles. And there is a sixth role, very important. What is the sixth role? Shastra. When what Krishna has taught is codified and becomes a text. That is the Gita Shastra. So therefore, when these six roles come together, our life rolls beautifully. Our life becomes a pilgrimage. Otherwise, we are wandering in our life. This wandering transforms into pilgrimage when all these six roles, what are the six roles? Krishna, the source. Arjuna, the receiver. The guru, the seer. Sanjaya, the verifier. Dhritarashtra represents society, and the Gita Shastra, the Shastra itself. So that's the sixth code. 6 roles for life to roll. 7 experiences. In 5 shlokas, I know I'm being told, cut the experience short. Fortunately or unfortunately, Sanjaya's experience is not short. Through 5 shlokas, Sanjaya shares his experiences. And what we see, Sanjaya's experiences at the end of this samvada between Arjuna and Krishna essentially shows the pathway of transformation. Any pathway of transformation consists of these 7 beautiful experiences. And what are these experiences? Because these experiences apply to each and every one of us in our own path of transformation. And obviously, the first experience has to be Shravanam. Ityaham Vasudevasya Parthasya cha Mahatmanaha Sammadam imam Ashrausham. Shravanam, Ashrausham, hearing. Yasa prasadat shrutavan. Not just hearing, one must hear and hold dear to what one hears. Otherwise, that hearing becomes useless. I must hear to what Krishna says and hold it dear. That must become the most valuable thing. Because if I don't value something in my life, it does not come into my priorities. So, the listening really becomes fruitful only it starts to become of value to me in my life and living. It has to reflect in my day-to-day life and living. If it does not reflect in my day-to-day life and living, then that hearing, it remains a hearing of no value. So, Shravanam, first experience, Sanjaya goes through deep listening. Whether Arjuna has deeply listened or not, possibly not, because Krishna always keeps, hey Arjuna, hey Shrunu, hey Partha Shrunu, hey Arjuna Shrunu, hey Kaunteya Shrunu. Krishna never said, hey Sanjaya Shrunu. No. Krishna also knew Sanjaya was listening. But Krishna knew Sanjaya will always listen deeply. It is Arjuna who requires a gentle push now and then. Sanjaya has been deeply listening. So first experience that Sanjaya goes through and all of us also must go through in the pathway of transformation is Shravana. The second, Adbhuta, experience of wonder. Because the foundation of any spiritual journey must be built on wonder. This is something which we have long forgotten. Possibly in our kindergarten, we used to say, twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Wondering stopped there only. After that, we go and ask the teacher why the stars twinkle. The teacher says, shut up. Finished. That's the wondering stops then and there. Without wonder of Bhagavan's creation, spiritual journey never progresses. So the second experience is Adbhuta. Samvadam imam Adbhutam, he says. Samvadam imam Adbhutam. Ityaham Vasudevasya Parthasya cha Mahatmanaha. Samvadam imam Ashausham Adbhutam Roma Harshanam. The third experience, Roma Harshana, joy, delight. What kind of delightful experience Sanjaya is going through? This is also an experience very important for us in our own spiritual journey. This delight, I call, is a joy that arises in a devotional chain reaction between faith and knowledge. We must realize that faith is the root of knowledge. Faith is also the fruit of knowledge. Understand this very clearly. Faith is both the root of knowledge. Faith is also the fruit of knowledge. Now, when we begin our spiritual journey, we need little faith. Without faith, no journey can begin. Because little bit of faith is what will keep us on the journey. So when we start on the spiritual journey with little faith, which keeps shaking all the time, but that faith keeps us moving little by little, taking small steps. Then therefore this faith is the root of knowledge. To gain any knowledge, I need some amount of faith. With zero faith, even an atheist has tremendous faith. It's only that his direction of faith is so very different. Even in the scientific world, in the world of science, it is every discovery is based on science. First, there is a hypothesis, there is a postulation, and then there is a discovery. Everything starts with faith. Now, the faith may be not strong, it may be shaky, but some amount of faith is required, which is the root of knowledge. But the beauty is, as we listen to Krishna, as the Gita messages flow in, as we acquire knowledge, this knowledge strengthens faith. Faith eventually becomes the fruit of knowledge. That's when we cultivate unshakable faith. Now, there is that joy. All of us would have experienced this. Because we start off with so many questions. We are anxious for getting answers to our questions. One by one, questions get answered. We start gaining knowledge. We may have shaking faith. But there is that joy in us when we start realizing that there is this beautiful devotional chain reaction between faith and knowledge. Because a little bit of faith will get us a little bit of knowledge. This little bit of knowledge will bring us a little bit of answers. This little bit of answers will strengthen this faith. This strengthening of the faith will help us move further, asking more questions, getting more answers. So this is a process, a chain reaction, which is so very beautiful. Sanjaya has witnessed possibly the best possible set of question and answers in the history of humankind. And therefore, he is delighted. He is joyful, knowing this, deriving his joy out of this. So therefore, the third experience is the experience of delight and joy, which is Roma Harshana. The first experience is the experience of Shravanam. Second, Adbhutam. Third, Roma Harshana. Fourth is Smriti, Smarana and Manana together. Because why? He says, Samsmritya, 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 Punah, Punaha, Muhur, Muhuhu. So it is about recollection, it is about reflection, it is about contemplation all the time. If we do not recollect what we have listened, we will lose. It's just a matter of time, because we always ask this question. Today I listened to something beautiful, something wonderful. Tomorrow I forget. If not tomorrow, day after. There is no magic. There is no magic to remember. The only formula is recall. If we keep recalling what we have listened regularly, repeatedly, that's why Sanjaya teaches a very important lesson. Samsmritya, 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 Muhurmuhu, Punah, Punaha. He keeps, the more we recollect, the more we reflect, the lesser the chances for us to forget. lesses the chances for us to not remember. So therefore, the fourth experience that Sanjaya goes through and all of us go through also is Smarana and Manana. The fifth experience is Nididhyasana. Tacha samsmritya rupam atyadbhutam hare. Nididhyasana. Nididhyasana is where one is connected to Krishna constantly absorbed. And the sixth following Nididhyasana is Darshana. Shrotavyaha, mantavyaha, Nididhyasitavyaha, Drashtavyaha. Drashtavyaha is having that glorious vision of Krishna. And therefore here he clearly, Nididhyasana, Darshana, and the sixth experience, immediately he says, Vismayo me mahan rajan. This is what is very important. Vismaya. He uses a very important term here. Tacha samshrutya samsmritya rupam atyadbhutam hare. Vismayo me maharajan. Krishyamicha punah punaha. The Vismaya here is very important. So therefore, in a way, the Gita journey is a journey not from Vishada to Vijaya. It is actually Vishada to Vismaya. Vismaya. Now, we all define enlightenment as a state of comprehension, but Sanjaya gives us a much more holistic definition for enlightenment. What is enlightenment? Enlightenment is not just comprehension, it is also a state of deep wonder and awe of Krishna. Because comprehending Krishna, we may think, is like solving a finite puzzle. Krishna is not like a crossword puzzle to be solved. We solve a crossword puzzle and then we move on for more stimulations. Krishna is not like that. Comprehending Krishna essentially means also comprehending that he is beyond our comprehension. To be in awe of his inconceivable infinitude. To be in awe of his inexhaustible sweetness. To be in awe of his supreme greatness. To be in awe of his limitlessness. That is Vismaya. That is the glorious experience that Sanjaya goes through. And that is the sixth experience in the pathway of transformation. And the seventh, and the final, and the concluding experience is deep, firm conviction. Matir mama. Matihi here is conviction. Yatra yogeshwara krishnaha, yatra patto dhanuddaraha, tatta shri vijayo bhutihi, dhruva nitihi, matir mama. That's the seventh experience, that the ultimate experience of any sadhaka. And that experience comes because of the pathway that one takes. Shravanam, adbhutam, harshanam, smaranam, smananam, nididhyasanam, vismaya. And finally, conviction, matihi. Conviction, what kind of conviction? Sanjaya's conviction must be our conviction. The conviction is, yatra yogeshwaraha krishnaha, yatra parthaha dhanuddaraha, tatra shri vijayo bhutihi dhruvanītir matirma. Vijaya, wherever there is Krishna, the Yogeshwara, and where there is Arjuna, the Dhanuddhara, victory, all kinds of victory is guaranteed. Now we may ask this question. Where there is Krishna, definitely there should be victory. So what is the need to add Arjuna here? Yatra yogeshwara krishnaha tatra shrihi vijayo bhutihi dhruvanītir matirmama. That is also a statement in line with the pramanas. But Sanjaya is very clear. He also adds, along with yatra yogeshwara krishnaha, yatra parthaha dhanuddaraha. Not just parthaha, dhanuddaraha also. Because Partha on the battlefield needs Dhanush to do his duty. So therefore, very clearly, Sanjaya's point here is the seventh experience, that high end, the height of all experiences is that conviction that in my life and living, I have only one choice, which is Krishna and nothing else. We must avoid the Duryodhana dilemma. We must avoid the Duryodhana delusion, because Duryodhana the fool chose Krishna's army to Krishna. Pandava chose Krishna. And we see what was the outcome of that choice that was made. Sanjaya once again is saying, once again here, that when that conviction, that final experience that it is Krishna, it is Krishna, it is Krishna, the only choice that I have is Krishna. That is the height of all experiences. That is my full alignment of my will. It's not just alignment. I surrender, I discover that Krishna has given me a will only to surrender it to his will. And when that happens, that is the highest experience that anyone can go through. That is the experience of a supreme bhakta. That is the experience of a mumukshu. And that is the experience that Sanjaya shares towards the end of the Gita in his epilogue. No wonder this epic experience, therefore, makes the epilogue epic. So 7 experiences, 1 center, 2 partners, 3-fold relationship, 4-fold goals, 5 mantras, 6 roles, 7 experiences. Let us express our gratitude to Sanjaya, who is probably never glorified. Whenever we study Gita, Sanjaya becomes very incidental to us. But we must realize that Sanjaya is central to the Gita. And Sanjaya plays a very important role. And it thanks to Sanjaya. It is Sanjaya Prasada. Sanjaya can call Gita as Vyasa Prasada. Arjuna can call Gita as Krishna Prasada. But for us, it is Sanjaya Prasada. So therefore, let us prostrate to that divine lotus feet of Sanjaya and express our sincere gratitude. And may we all align our life and living based on that one shloka of Sanjaya's shloka. Out of 700 shlokas, if we need to take away one shloka, it is not Krishna's shloka or Arjuna's shloka, it is Sanjaya's shloka. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishnaha, Yatra Partho Dhanuddaraha, Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutihi, Rivanitir Matir Mama. Jai Sri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna.